most people tend to tie wisdom and knowledge to power.
Mhm.
It's like that one of those things from some old movie where the first character asks, "You know what power is?" and then one of the other characters replies that money is related to power, and then the other guy goes like, "No, wisdom is power," and then the last guy says,
Knowledge.
"Power is power."
Mm.
So we tend to tie wisdom or knowledge to some sort of a higher status, some sort of power, something that sets us apart from everybody else.
Yeah,
Why?
yeah.
Because we've got the wisdom, we know what's going on,
We know more.
Exactly. But what most people, and I think like almost everybody, because it's like the wisdom trap, I end up forgetting that the more you know, the less you will see. Now, a lot of people will think that, okay, if I know more, I'm going to see less, so I'm going to be more focused. But it's actually quite the opposite. Because once you know more, your brain is going to be functioning on a multi-dimensional way, in the sense that you're not going to be seeing the thing for the thing it is, but you're going to be layering everything in different multiple layers and different multiple dimensions, trying to figure out how it works and what it's connected to and all of this. So that's why you will see less, because you're seeing less of the bigger picture.
Sure.
You're seeing more of the detailed picture.
It's not only that, but we've talked about it before, how, I don't remember which episode, but when you know more, you also realize all the other parts that you still don't know about. It's like an endless, I don't know the word for it, but like you keep on exploring and you realize there are even more areas that you haven't explored.
Definitely.
So
definitely.
it's an endless venture.
Definitely. That's why, like, this also ties to why you see less. Like, I was going to build up for that same point. Because first of all, you're going to be lost in that small details. And then second part is that the more you know, the more you will know that you don't know.
Yeah. And another thing, I feel like we should not mix wisdom with knowledge here, because wisdom is basically like practicing and applying the knowledge that you have, but you can gain knowledge just for the sake of it without being a wise person.
Definitely, definitely. But I feel like you cannot be wise without the knowledge.
Of course, yeah.
But you can be knowledgeable without being wise.
Yeah. Yeah.
So technically, knowledge will lead up to wisdom.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to kind of tie them in a way, because at the same time, I feel like every person who's knowledgeable or who has some intelligence of some sort or knows a little bit too much, they will start always making the assumption that they're wise.
This is the problem. This is where I want to make the differentiation, that a wise person, I think in general, wise people know that they don't know too much, but they know that the things that they know, they can apply it in their lives to improve themselves in some way. But there are people who are just gaining knowledge for the sake of it. And this is where we reach these downsides, I guess, of knowledge, and why knowledge can backfire in your life and actually lead to things that you didn't ask for, that you didn't want,
I feel like, okay, just one thing there to add as well to that same thing, that because wisdom or wise people, they are also aware, or they're willing to learn more from anyone else, from everyone.
They're more open.
Exactly. And then the knowledgeable average person who thinks they're wise, they're like, no, I know better, so you should be the one listening to me.
This is a big one, because this is like kind of downside of knowledge that you can see. I mean, hey, I'm also included in that category, that you can become a little bit more arrogant and your ego starts.
Definitely.
Like, hey, I just want to be right here. So you start to want to know more about the topic just to be right, just to be knowing more than other people. And this is where you're actually not wise. It's actually the opposite. Yeah, you know a little bit about something, but that doesn't make you better than other people, in a sense. You know? And that's one of the big ones.
It's a trap, like, again, like, it's the curse of wanting to have more knowledge, or it's the curse of wanting or trying to be wise.
Yeah, thinking that you can at some point know everything, but you're actually never gonna know, because you think if you know more, you will know, like,
life will be easier. Making decisions will be easier. Everything will be more smooth. But it's actually quite the opposite, because it's just gonna add more stress to you, because, like, I can think of a lot of examples, but all of them are a little bit more complicated. So anyways, but we're just going to like lay it down simply. If you know that to go from point A to point B is just that you got to go through the straight road, but then you've got someone who has a lot of knowledge, and they're trying to figure out a way to make it smoother.
Analysis
so instead of
exactly,
so instead of just going the straight line, you're gonna be analyzing every step that you take, and like, oh, maybe if I take a turn here, maybe if I go up, then I will have momentum coming down, and then instead of just taking the simple route, you're just trying to analyze it to make it faster. But in the process, you're actually making everything about the process way slower, and then.
But this is kind of like when you're trying to research anything that you want to buy or you want to improve at, you start to have so much information that you just don't know what to decide anymore, and you're just probably gonna drop the thing that you wanted to do and just do something else.
Like, fuck it, I'm not doing that shit anymore.
And also, in a way, when you start to know more, you think. Like one would think that you're becoming more open-minded, that you're more open to things, but it's actually the opposite. You kind of become more closed-minded because you start to think that, yes, I know more about this topic, so whatever the other person is saying is probably wrong.
It goes back to the arrogance, because a lot of people, like we've said, once you learn and you start having a little bit more knowledge about a certain topic, you're gonna get a little bit of ego, a little bit of arrogance, and like I know what you're talking about. I've seen this, I've read about this. And so when somebody else is telling you something about it, especially when you're just starting to learn that, you get into that, we go back to the diagrams of that you don't know that you know.
What people know that you don't know. And what nobody knows.
Let me let me sort out my thoughts a little bit here. I'm getting confused myself. They've got that you know that you know that you don't know that you know, and you don't know that you don't know. And at the starting of it, you think that like all the three other aspects are non-existent, and you just know that you know, and then you think that, okay, I've got it all figured out. And then you're kind of become a little bit close-minded. So when the other person is telling you something about a certain subject that you've been reading or trying to learn a little bit more about,
you're gonna start to be defensive, or
exactly. Why? Because like, hey, I've been reading about this. Who the fuck do you think you are that you're telling me that what I've read and what I've studied so far is wrong?
Yeah.
But that's when with time, as when you learn more about it, you start you start like unlocking the different areas, and you start realizing, okay, there's a lot that I don't know. You start to feel
some shame in a way, also, like because of your behavior, maybe about the same.
Definitely, and then you'll become a little bit self-doubtful, and you're gonna become like a little bit anxious, maybe a little bit scared, holding yourself a little bit back, because like, oh shit, I've been arrogant about this my whole life, and now I'm realizing that I know nothing about this topic. And then there's going to be, like I said, like there's going to be doubt, fear, anxiety, and many other emotions that are kind of holding you back from actually saying your opinion again.
Yeah. But actually, not only that, it's not only that knowledge can make you arrogant, close-minded, or put you in this analysis paralysis stage, but also when you read a lot about a topic, when you know too much about something, especially when it comes to things about life and what life is meant to be. For example, knowing about the suffering in life and that life is not fair. This could put you in this state of mind where you're trying to control your environment more and you are overthinking. Like you start to find ways to make sure that no harm can come to you, that you're not going to be in an accident, that you're overthinking too much and trying to control the things that you can't control, the things that could never, you can actually never have control over. And this is also something I fall into, where I feel like the more I know about reality, whatever reality is, and about life and philosophy, somehow I become more paralyzed in my own life because I am thinking about all of these different things. But maybe this is something subjective and not everyone will fall into, but I feel like many people do.
I think the first part is that everyone will fall into, is that when you start knowing too much about certain topic, you're going to be doubtful about everything.
Yeah.
Why? Now, look at it like this. If you
Ignorance is bliss.
Exactly. Because once you know how something works or is supposed to work, when you're trying that thing, when you're doing the thing, you're going to be always trying to categorize it in a way that it's going to work that way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, Like you've got a manual, for example,
this is
about
what
how
I mean by
to
the
build
control.
some...
This is what I mean that
Exactly.
you try to control your environment.
Exactly, but that's the second part of it.
Yeah.
The first part of it, which like the control part, I don't think a lot of people will fall into that category.
Yeah.
But the first part of it, which is the self-doubt and the questioning, that's something that everyone goes through, regardless. Because you know too much. Because you know how something is supposed to work. You start looking for the smallest details and the smallest ways to make it work maybe more like better or in an efficient way, or
you become
or
more,
whatever.
try to be more efficient.
Exactly. And then all of these, like, then the process is gonna probably take you way longer than it's supposed to be. Like we go back to going from A to B. Instead of taking the straight line, you're gonna be trying to find the optimum way to get from A to B. And in that process, you're gonna be noticing at some point that, shit, I still did not move from point A. And then that's when like stuff such as self-doubt, fear, anxiety, you know, all of this kind of crippling emotions will start settling in. And now people at this point will react to this stage differently, either in a controlling manner or in a manner where they don't know what to do anymore, and then they're going to freeze.
Yeah, and I feel like, especially now, chatbots like ChatGPT are kind of amplifying this issue, because now you can, I mean, sure, in the past you were able to Google anything that you wanted to ask, but you need to find the best result. You need to go to this forum and read what people are saying. Now you can just go to ChatGPT and ask it a certain question about how to do this, how to do that, and it spits out a prompt. It spits out the result in like 3 seconds, and now you have all of this information, and it's warning you about the downside, what is the good side, and all of these different things that maybe you didn't even bother to think about. And now you are thinking about that, and that holds you back even more from making that decision or taking the step or actually doing something. You're just thinking and standing in analysis paralysis again, and you just don't know what to do. You want to control everything because now you know more, and you want to make sure that nothing bad or wrong is going to happen. And this is the problem with efficiency, kind of, you know, like you're trying to optimize everything that you end up not doing anything because you're trying to be so perfectionist about things, and that's not how life works.
Definitely. And like, if you're going to bring AI into this as well, like, just to add something there, which is a little bit unrelated to our topic, but I feel like even in the past where you just had to Google something, the process of Googling always gave us a little bit of time to process the information.
That's what I mean.
But right now, it's like at the tip of your fingers, you've got way too much information handed down to you on a silver platter. That's going to trigger a lot of emotions, like you've said, where you start to have to think about all the details, all the this and that, and that's going to get you in this analysis paralysis.
It's a big issue. Yeah, it's a big issue, and especially I want to focus more on that part where ChatGPT always tells you about the negative thing about. Whenever you ask, if you want to ask it about a drug, if you want to ask it about traveling to some city, to some third world country city, it's always gonna spit out also the downside or negative thing about something, and that puts you more in anxiety and worry, and yeah, it's really a big problem in today's world, I would say.
Definitely. I feel like it just, but at the same time, I think it's just a matter of adaptivity, because AI is kind of still like new, and a lot of people are not, they don't know how to use it correctly, probably, you know, because instead of us going for like a way to use it that will make things easier for us, we're just using it in like the first
thought. Oh, let's ask, you know, this is the problem.
The first thought that pops up in your head, and then you're getting, then ChatGPT, or the AI at least, is just going to present you with what you've asked for, because you're not being specific in the way that you're dealing with it.
I mean, basically, I guess you could prompt it in a way that you would ask it, please don't give me the negative side or the downside.
Not necessarily, because, okay, now we're going a little bit off topic here, but that's okay. I feel like when you ask Chat AI to research something for you, then obviously it's going to show us the positives and the negatives. Yeah. Because that's what research
being
means.
Objective.
Exactly, that's what research means.
Yeah.
But and your question is not like really specific. But like I said, it's just an adaptivity matter. Once you know that you have to ask specific questions to get specific informations, that's when you can start like using it in a different manner that won't suddenly give you like hundreds of thousands of information in 1 second, but it's going to give you specific information about a specific thing. Then from there you can build it up to something else. Because I had that at the start as well with AI, when I was like asking questions, and suddenly I was like bombarded with I don't know, like walls of texts. I'm like, Jesus, I didn't want, exactly, I didn't ask for this. Like, this is kind of already overwhelming me for a second here. And then I would always try to like rinse it out with the AI, the information, so they can just give me the code of what I'm looking for. That's AI, and this whole thing is just a different topic for another day.
I don't think it's completely a different topic, because it's kind of related to knowledge in the sense that, as I mentioned before, as I mentioned in the past, if you wanted to know about something, you had to Google it. You had to buy books. The further you go back in time, the less likely that you will find a way to know about something that you need to know about. Like, it was just harder.
There was a process.
There was a process. You needed to think about it. You needed to ask people. You needed to find a way to know. Now you don't. Now it's much easier. Exactly.
Literally, just like, bam, it's there.
So this technology is basically amplifying all the downsides of knowledge, of knowing more, in a way.
The same applies to all the technologies that we have nowadays.
Yeah, sure. Sure.
It just, I think that technology is advancing faster than we're able to adapt to it.
And we are more and more bombarded by information. So this brings me to the question of, obviously, this is an issue that is becoming worse and worse. Knowledge is important, but we are reaching a point where we have too much knowledge and it's backfiring. So what is the solution then? Is it to not know more, or is there some line in between where you can have some balance where you can minimize the downsides and actually just expand your knowledge and apply it in your life to become a wiser person?
I don't know if my approach to this is the right one, but I'm someone who says, and this is a quote that I've mentioned before, that a human is nothing but a thinking. And if I'm nothing but a thinking seed, then my a little bit relentless, kind of aggressive approach to this topic, at least, is fuck it. Bring me all the information and the knowledge. I will probably struggle or suffer for a few months, maybe a year or two, but eventually I will be able to sort out and process all this information, this knowledge, and we'll be able to set it like to have a better use for it in my life. But like I said, like, this kind of works for me, and my personality and like the way that I function. I like I'm the person who likes, hey, let me be the sponge. I will take it all in.
Yeah.
It's gonna take me some time to process it, to rinse it out, to decide what's good and what's not, and what do I want and what I won't want in my life. And then at some point I will get there. For some people, that can be really overwhelming. So that kind of differs on who you are.
From individual to individual.
Exactly. And kind of like the life that you want for yourself, or what you're trying to get out of this life that we've got, I believe, though, that nevertheless of the choice that you make, you're going to be bombarded with everything.
Yeah, especially nowadays. Yeah.
Exactly. Whether it's from social media, whether it's from AI, whether it's from literally just being on the internet, or even talking to people or your friends, because they're being bombarded with information and they need to process that. And the way most people process information or knowledge, exactly, through external means. So if you try to step away from social media and you try to separate from a lot of things, then you've got your friends or people that you know
that will
try to process it with you, which at some point,
it's unavoidable.
Exactly. So this is something that we've got to go through. But of course, you can always limit how much information you get at one point, and then maybe that will change your process time about it.
I mean, I think at least for the point of the arrogance and ego, a good way to go against that is to take any information with a hint of salt. That anything we know could be at some point not true, could be false, could be changed, So whatever someone is disagreeing with you or telling you something that you think you know more of, don't just deny that completely. Maybe there is some truth to that. Maybe they have a point in some way that you're just not aware of right now, that you will realize in a few years, and you're like, oh shit, what that person said back then, it was kind of right, and I was very defensive, and I dealt with it in the wrong way. But I think in general, at least for curious people, it's really hard to not seek out information, But maybe try to always reminding yourself that just because this is information, just because people talk about this, or or the AI spit out that information doesn't necessarily mean it's 100% true. And also not letting information kind of decide your emotions. Like, just because you know about the suffering in the world or that life is not fair, maybe there's something bigger than that. Maybe this is what we know. We know that there is suffering in the world, but maybe this suffering has a bigger meaning. So maybe spirituality is a solution for this kind of this existential threat that came from knowing too much.
But
it's hard to answer this question, to be honest.
It's that kind of brings me back to what I've said at the start, which is the more you know, the less you will see. You know, because the more you know, and I'm focusing here only on the existential threat that you know that there's a lot of suffering and pain in life. Once you know that, and you've got, you know, the more you know, the less you see, the more you're going to be focusing on that. And then you're going to forget that just as much suffering and as much pain as there is in this life, there's also joy and happy. You know? Like, we tend to forget that everything got its opposite. And then we just focus on what we see, and we go into, again, like the details. We start layering the pain, we start layering the suffering, all of these dreadful events that are happening in the world. And then that, of course, that's going to affect you. And then we end up forgetting that, like, hey, on the other side of this, or on the opposite side of this, there is also joy and happy. There's people who are making milestones in their lives, for example. I don't know. They're defeating diseases, illnesses.
They're rescuing animals.
Exactly. They're helping animals. There's people, there's organizations that are, you know, doing stuff to help other people, whether it's charity or this or that, you know. And then we just focus too much. Exactly. We focus too much on the negative that we forget that there's positives. Or the opposite can be also true. You focus too much on the positives that you forget that there's negatives. And that's like, this is the curse of knowing too much. Because, like, I'm just coming back to, again, I'm repeating myself here. The more you know, the less you'll see. And then you'll end up being stuck in those thought loops where you only see what you want to see.
You're focusing only on that corner.
Exactly. You're only seeing what you want to see, or you're only seeing what your brain want to see, and then you're forgetting that, like, you know, there's another whole world out there. Just like sometimes you have to remember that you gotta zoom out and remember that the universe is so big, and we're just like a drop in water in it. Just like zooming out and remembering that we're very small in comparison to the universe. Sometimes you also have to zoom in to remember that you're also big in comparison to the small things. Most people focus on the zooming out and that they don't matter and that they're too small and they're this and this. Exactly. But sometimes you literally, like, do this for once, you know, go in the woods and stand beneath a lot of trees and just stare up at the sky and remember to zoom out. And remember that you're very small, very tiny in comparison to everything. But after that, I want you to get closer to a plant and zoom in on that plant and remember how big you are in comparison to that.
I guess this ties to something also about knowledge, that when you know too much about something, you kind of bring yourself out of the experience. You destroy fun and joy, in a sense. Like, instead of enjoying a sunset, you're starting to analyze something about what the sun means, like how close is it to Earth, or all of these things that are just bringing you out of the moment instead of enjoying the moment. And I feel like there are all of these different downsides of knowledge that have kind of different solutions, but all of them share one solution that is just, we've talked about it 100, I don't know how many times now, that meditation and self-awareness. So when you're aware of all of these downsides and you are aware of what meditation can bring you, which is being more in the moment and not analyzing things the whole time, then maybe you can find that middle ground where you are a knowledge seeker, you want to know about things, but you can find pockets of moments in your day where you can just meditate a little bit and just being with yourself, being in the moment, trying to enjoy something that is happening right now. Maybe that is the middle ground. Maybe that is the solution to this big issue.
Even awareness. Even too much awareness.
Not just awareness by itself. Not just awareness by itself.
But like
it needs to be like you're aware about something and you're doing something about it. you know.
But even that can be too, because even too much awareness is bad for you.
It's bad.
Or can influence you in a bad way.
But knowing more brings also too much self-awareness in a sense, you know.
Even like self-awareness, and even the fact, like you said, you don't have to just be aware, but you also have to be able to work on it. Even these can influence you in a bad way. Because you could reach that point where you're too self-aware of everything, that you analyze every step that you take, So if you're staring at the sun, where we're sticking with the sun setting example, and you are analyzing the situation, and
you're being too self-aware.
Exactly. And then you realize that, oh shit, I'm analyzing it too much. Maybe I should focus on the sun.
Now you're thinking even more.
And then exactly. You get to that thought loop. But why was I analyzing it too much? Ooh, am I just looking at the sun, and then maybe there's something deep down in me here that I should analyze, but this, but that, but then this, but that. And then you get stuck in this loop again, and then, the moment is gone. And the same can be said to, trying to adjust or fix, because then you're always in a loop of rinse and repeat, do something wrong, be self-aware, try to fix it as if there's something wrong with it, even though it could be just literally you being a human being.
Yeah. But let's not forget, self-awareness itself comes from knowledge. It's like a side effect of knowledge. The more you know about things, the more you will realize things about yourself, because you are part of life. You're part of everything.
Sure.
You're part of history. You're part of any fucking thing you're trying to learn. You're part of physics, of chemistry. You're bound to reach a point where you're going to start to analyze your own life, and you're going to be self-aware. But I feel like just a little bit of self-awareness is needed, that you are aware of the issue itself. This is what I mean. But sure, it's also one of those things that if you take it to the extreme, it's going to become something bad, just like knowledge itself. And I feel like we've talked enough about the negative things about knowledge, but let's not forget that I'm not trying, at least I am not trying to discourage people from knowing more about things. I mean, hey, we're gonna finish the episode here. I'm going to learn about something. It's a never-ending pursuit. But it's important to be aware of the downsides of it. Being aware of all the different things that might stand in your way at some point. Maybe things you are not seeing right now, especially when you are starting. Like, we all start at some point to want to learn a lot about things, to read a lot of books, and in that moment we are not aware of that. It's something that comes with time. And I noticed it in myself, how over the years I became more anxious. I became more depressed about the state of the world. It's because I've read too much about history, about what's happening in the world. But these are downsides that you need to cope with and find a way to deal with them. So that's the point of this episode, I guess. What do you think?
Kind of, yeah, because everybody talks about how knowledge is power. We're going back to the beginning of the episode, And everyone talks about the importance of knowing more and more. But almost nobody talks about the downside of it. People forget to say that, hey, like, once you know too much, that could backlash and backfire on you. And then that could lead to a lot of disasters or different messes in your life. Nevertheless, again, we go back to a human is nothing but a thinking seed. So knowledge is something that you definitely need, and you definitely want to know at least a little bit more about maybe your life, your career, who you are, what you want to do, and all of this kind of stuff. But at the same time, just know that knowing too much is going to backfire until you tame the beast, per se. I think that's it for this episode.
That's it for this episode.
Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.
See ya.